Good news, you're here just in time. Here's another Laneway Talks.
Morning, Kent.
Good morning.
For all listeners today, we're talking to one of our artists, Kent Steedman, who has been a part of the Celibate Rifles for 20 or 30 years, might even be longer. And we're just going to explore a bit of his life. We actually don't know a lot about Kent, quite frankly, so we're going to find out today and we're going to let you all know about it. So, Kent, welcome to the show, Laneway Talks. This is where we get to know all our artists, and we go through a fairly similar profile on each artist when we interview them, and we start off with, where did you grow up? Where did you live?
Well, I grew up in Sydney, near Branches Forest.
As a young guy or young kid, did you play the guitar because you are a guitarist, or did you take the guitar up later on, say in your teenage years?
No, I was teenage.
Okay.
15 or 16, I corresponded with that growth spurt that you people have when they were teenagers, I guess. And you play footy against the guys here, the same guys as you. The next year you come back, they're a foot taller with you.
Well, that's quite late, really, in teenage years for someone as accomplished as yourself. And did you actually have lessons, or did you simply, take it up yourself and teach yourself?
I had a few. You're stretching the memory, but you do, but I had a few, first and foremost, I was sitting around with a couple of mates playing guitar and pulling bongs, really.
Yeah.
Then
I'm not sure what you mean by bongs, but we'll keep on going. Yeah.
You're participating in adolescence too.
Group activity. Group activity,
group play.
And so as a bunch of guys, what were a couple of guys had musical instruments? So you start playing guitar or whatever. Is that how?
A couple of guys, I'd be up at similar times. Some of us got into guitar. We played studio soccer or whatever. And I even played Aussie rules in Sydney, which was really weird for a teenager in Sydney back then.
Oh, absolutely.
Your Victorian people will be somewhat impressed, perhaps.
Tell me, what was your musical interests then back then? Did you start liking music, say, from the age of 10 onwards, or was it when you were a teenager you really discovered music? And what was the music that you were kind of listening to at the time?
Music was always part of the house. My father liked music. It wasn't necessarily music I liked to listen to, but there was always, some records on of some description. And, back when families did those kind of things, sometimes we'd sit around after dinner and listen to some music or whatever it was. My brother was a couple of years older, so he had some stuff. I guess I remember, the Beatles were around. There's a bit of this and that.
Yeah.
Listen to the radio. One of my earliest memories was hearing, I think it was a Master's Apprentice, Turn Up Your Radio. And that was really rocking. And I don't remember if it was because my parents disliked it so much that I liked it, but that was the sort of stuff I seem to really like.
It's interesting because you're really talking quite a Australian type of music and whatever, whereas my first, where I suppose I really got a love for music was discovering, I suppose, 73, Judas Priest. And the second album had come out, maybe 74, and Sad Wings of Destiny. But at that time, at 73, we'd also, as guys down the beach, because we lived down the coast, we were listening to Kiss. Nobody had ever heard of Kiss, and we were going nuts with this stuff, right? And but we also loved our local music. So at the time, there was the Red House Roll Band, then became Red House. Of course, there was Stevie Wright. AC/DC had kind of started a little bit later, and we got right there, and there was Skyhawks. But you mentioned the Masters Apprentices, whereas we didn't really get into the Masters Apprentices at all. It wasn't where we were at. So I find that quite intriguing. It's a different kind of flavour. And so where did you go to from there after listening to that? Did you start to get this real vibe on music and go, right, I'm really loving this? And
I just I can't really remember, to be frank. But I just remember that you get these things, whatever they call it, 20 red hot hits or 20 this and that.
Yeah.
And whatever was on it is, like, I think Race with the Devil, by the Gun, and
Yeah.
the radio.
Yeah.
Things like that. Whatever rock I like.
Yeah.
And I generally do all the other stuff on it.
So,
And then when I could, I remember, I think Machine Head was something in the record radar, the hearing thing.
yeah,
But I got into the Blois cult quite early.
yeah,
So I became a very big Blois cult fan.
yeah,
And, that's quite inspirational for me, I guess. And then on one level, it was just to step along to the punk and the Birdman-esque type stuff, because I did like the Rolling Stones as well.
yeah. So when was your first band? When did you join or form your first band, Kent?
I don't know.
Or was the Rifles your first band, essentially?
Essentially, I think there was one band with one of the guys in the rock was cool. And the first band, we were the Southern Highland group, which is pretty funny because when they put that poster up, they had to scratch the first letter of each name. But then the next thing was one of the Rifles.
Yeah, gotcha. And how did the Rifles actually form? Was there an ad, or did you guys meet somewhere, or how did it happen?
Look, I really can't remember. Me and the guy we were in school together.
Yeah.
Phil, the drummer. I knew him, and he sort of probably told me he played drums.
Yeah.
And someone knew this other guy, Mikey, from another school, who played bass. So we managed to somehow get together at, I think, Phil's parents' place and made some noise one afternoon. It was on Saturday afternoon. It's like,
Yeah.
16-year-old kid. At that time, there was no semblance of silverton or any of that stuff. When are they going to grow up and do something else? But just, we'll let them make noise loud.
Tell me too, what was the guitar that you were using when you formed or started with the Rifles? What was that first guitar that you were using?
The first thing I got was some really Japanese size. And I had fairly quickly, I got a pretty good Ibanez Les Paul.
Yeah. And I like Ibanez Les Pauls, the old ones. They're actually quite nice.
Yeah. No, it was a good guitar. I don't know if Dave still got it because we sort of swapped. Eventually, I ended up with the and he got a Mosrite. Dave, at the early stage, Dave wasn't around, but there was another person with you because there was a certain age where we could go out and start playing band. I think in Sydney, when I was about 16, I could get into pub. When I was 17, they had some licensing stuff. They started asking for LEDs. I looked bloody 12 or younger.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's quite common in the musical press how young you looked and you were the baby of the band.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know what that is.
No, I don't know. I don't either, but I have read that, and there's a lot of comments online about it, how young you look. Yeah. So you've started with that because, quite frankly, I'll just move ahead, but then we're going to come back to that period, is the kind of guitar going from I'm not sure I've ever seen you play a Les Paul, quite frankly. So you actually drifted away from that Gibson Les Paul flavour, didn't you?
Yeah. I came back to it for a little while. I had my Epiphone stolen for about a year.
Yeah.
I had Strat and I went and bought I think something like a 50 Les Paul.
Yeah.
So I used that for a while. I think around heavy guitar. I can't fully remember. Yeah. So I didn't like heavy guitar.
Yeah.
Because the jumper,
So you've stuck with, I mean, essentially you have not been a real Gibson player, have you? You've been more a Fender?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, my first two ads were Fenders.
What do you find? I try to get this out of everybody. It can't be the look of the guitar. It's got to be the feel of the guitar. So what did you find different going from a Gibson to a Fender?
Well, I went basically to the Epiphone. It is sort of halfway between you. So I played the Effie with the beginning humbuckers, not the big fat humbuckers. And I eventually did that, but that was a long time. I just played that Epiphone for the first 10 years. And eventually got another Epiphone, the P90 and a couple of other things came and went.
But was it the pickup sounds on them or was it the neck?
Yeah, I guess it had to be the sound I was after because I was looking for something slightly different, not knowingly, but we didn't sort of want to sound like everyone else. And I liked driving the amp. And, when you're young, you're sort of still trying to work out how to do it. But that amp was the the amps I had and the guitars I had, if you pushed it hard, it went well. But then it just wasn't loud enough at a certain point. And those little amps weren't loud enough to kick on, so I had to get other things.
Tell me, are we talking with the rifle starting up 79?
Yeah, around maybe this big. The times you're talking about are a bit before the incident. 79, I think, around 79, 80, I think before it was really.
And tell me, what did you consider yourself as back then as a band forming? What style of music? Was it surf punk? Was it just rock punk? Was it punk? Was it something else?
Don't know. It's the Rifles, I guess, would be hard to categorise. It's been half our problem. And we never did either. We just played the music we liked. Some of the stuff, even in the early days, we pretty much started off writing songs rather than doing many covers.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did a couple of Birdman and Stones and stuff like that. But whatever any of us could play, it was easy to play your own things and other people.
I mean, what was happening at the time? There was Birdmen, there was the Saints were coming to the end, there was the Chosen Few out of Melbourne, which are your alternative anti-establishment punk band.
Yeah.
You know, I mean...
There was a bunch of stuff in Sydney. I mean, most of at some point, I don't remember chronologically, but there was the Lipstick Killers and the other stuff.
Yeah.
I was too young to do any of the Birdman stuff or the Saints. It was at that period of time where I couldn't get in anywhere.
I mean, did you find, like, from my background, I suppose being in entertainment industry, not in bands, every time if I was with, say, Mushroom or whatever, we're completely focused on Mushroom acts. When I was at Shock, I was completely focused on Shock acts. So I actually didn't know what was happening outside of that. And as a band yourself, did you find that you're so focused on what you're doing, it's very difficult to know what's going on around you?
To some degree, there was a period of time where, once I started working and had a bit of dough, me and the friends, we'd go out every weekend and just see bands.
Yeah.
It's good. Yeah. It's impossible for someone young to understand now that the what's on in Sydney when we read it out on Double Jones, it goes for half an hour to 35 minutes.
Yeah.
There was hundreds of venues to go and see bands at, and it was the same ones we focused on, often chase the ones you like around. But I've always had varied tastes. I do like all kinds of styles of music.
So with, back then as a band, the Rifles they start playing a few gigs, and was it a fairly lengthy escalation to building your own audience, or did it happen within, say, about 6 months where you go, there's actually something happening here, we're connecting?
Yeah, I think it was more like that over the course of 6 months to a year, because things could happen a bit faster then. Yeah, we did a residency at the Southern Cross Strawberry Hill Hotel.
Oh, yeah, I knew it well.
Strawberry Hills.
Yeah.
And it was a small venue, but we seemed to end up playing there quite a lot. And I have a vague memory. Dave from the Rifles, he's written every gig we've ever done.
Yeah.
He's a guy kind of stuff. But, yeah, we did a residency then, It was just one of those things that we were a band, we were playing, a few people were coming, we were getting a little bit of interest just from, more people showing up, and then we just thought, fuck it, bands are supposed to make records. So we just saved up whatever money we made, and one of the guys we knew, Damon knew him, he worked at the Opera House.
Oh, yeah.
And he was doing sound, Collie, I think he used to do sound for Rose Tattoo and some other stuff, and he sort of liked it. So he knew a guy, and he knew a guy. So we got a cheap Melbourne studio and had a boot north of Sydney.
And was that what album, or was that a single?
That was Jacques the Fish.
Yeah, gotcha.
The first EP. So we recorded 7 songs and put 4 out.
Yeah. I mean, I find that you can tell, as a band, you can tell fairly quickly whether you're connecting with an audience. No disrespect to artists out there that have gone for years. They drift on for years playing. Actually, you don't have an audience and never are going to have an audience, and they still drift on with a hope and a dream. But, the thing is, a connection between an audience and an artist or a band, to me, happens fairly quickly. The word spreads fairly quickly. The music needs to be quite individual and artistic on its own level, and that, to me, is what connects the audience. Because if it's the same old, I won't use trash, will I? the same old trash, I will use it, we've heard it all before. So we don't want to see that because we have our favourite bands who are doing that. So you're going to have your edge. And the Rifles had their edge. It was, I suppose, quite fast back at that stage. I think that, what was that first video at Kent's Theme that you gave us? I mean, that probably spells it out there at the beginning, doesn't it?
Yep.
You know, and
we were ridiculously fast for the first few years, even, you know, when I've been doing a bit of finding stuff, remastering, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You listen to the live in New York, the first CBGB thing we did.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's impossible to understand how you can play that fast. That was what we did every.
Well, interestingly enough, when you say that, I was talking to Billy Miller from the Ferrets, who had Billy Miller and the Great Blokes, which was later on, and he does some quite fast songs with that band. And I said, you really got to, you know, we were doing some live show. I said, you really got to do that song. He goes, I can't do that song. He goes, I can't play that fast anymore. He goes, I can't do that. And you do. There is this thing where you go, wow, I was doing it that quick. But, I mean, as you go on, I think you refine. You're still fairly fast, but you refine how you do that fast chord change or progression or whatever, and it's a lot more refined. But let's go back. So, therefore, you record your first album. We're in the early 80s and or late 70s or whatever, around that period, and things are really happening around town. And do you get approached by any record labels?
No.
Right. So you keep going and you put your own record out.
Basically, we put our first EP out and sold a few and think, I don't know how, somehow we cottoned onto the didgeridoo record shop. Maybe I was going into the record.
I remember the didgeridoo.
Yeah, they did some distribution.
Yeah.
We took them in 25 or 50 EPs and they really deployed them really quickly. So they said, bring some more in. I don't think we had any. We had to do another pressing.
Yeah.
That's the only time the album even got on the charts. I think Jacques Session was like number 38 on 2WS or something, because 1 week it sold 100 copies or something.
Yeah, gotcha. So,
and this was our chart success for the rest of our life.
So therefore, you think, right, well, you don't even think, or you might have been thinking about getting signed, but it's on to playing and getting a new record. So what's the next record you're working on?
So we went to sign the offering, and that was to do the album.
So with that, I mean, was that a lengthy process to actually write it, or were you guys writing fairly prolifically and got these things together? I mean, I know you now, and there's nobody working harder than you at the moment, I can assure you.
Yeah, okay. No one's a full hard of that.
Well, maybe.
The other thing is, I guess, your first album, you got your whole life to write. So, you know, it's some of us poets of a few years of playing and the various influences within the band ourselves. So we got there's like a tape which I'm trying to finish to put up from a very early gig at the Southern Club Hotel.
Yeah.
And when I listen to that, there's like 6 or 7 original songs that we never even recorded.
Really?
So we probably are quite prolific. We had a lot of songs and just kept writing them.
But Vinyl Excellent, or however you call that album, right? I'm pronouncing it correctly. That was put out as a band. So it's that you're just putting it out yourself. So you've gone out and you've pressed an LP, yeah?
The first EP was that. Vinyl Excellent, I think it was the man and Hot said they put it out.
So that was on Hot?
Yeah, that was on Hot. That was the first sort of
So you had succumbed to signing to a label?
I don't know if it's signing, it was a distribution deal.
Right, gotcha. Yeah. Yep.
I believe we paid for the recording. I don't know if they fronted to the pressing, but they distributed it.
Right. So that's become quite popular, I think, at the time on its own indie level, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. In that world, we were doing pretty well.
Now tell me, were you
were
you headlining by that stage, or were you still doing double gigs or supports?
Yeah, both. We do our own small shows, and then because we had a magnet, we try and stuff. We did a couple of things. We did Sonny Willers and Roller Tattoo and some supports if we could get them. But it was more our style.
I mean, did you find, Kent, that you were getting those crazy supports where you go, what the hell am I doing here tonight? I'm playing with Air Supply.
Yeah.
You know?
We didn't do anything we didn't want to do, I don't think.
Yeah. So if it was like one of those gigs where you go, why would I do that gig? You just didn't do it because the the booking agent is just putting you out there for the sake. I mean, I don't understand that when you get two completely different styles of music and they're supporting each other. Why are you wasting their time and the audience's time?
Yeah, it is a bit of that. It may have happened, but I don't remember it.
You know,
We like the Sunday Boys and we liked Razzo too, and we'd like someone to play with. Otherwise, we wouldn't bother to, I think.
Well, I remember going to a gig and seeing Paul Kelly and the Dots supporting Rose Tattoo. Now, with all due respect,
it's pretty dumb.
That is a crazy combination. There's no similarity in the music whatsoever. Now, Rose Tattoo was so loud, I had sore ears for the week. And Paul Kelly and the Dots, not Paul Kelly, were just fantastic. I mean, it was. I mean, as you said, you could go to any gig you wanted because they were happening on every street corner, and they were just fantastic artists, really accomplished and really professional. So with Zyder Excellent, or however you pronounce it, by that stage. Yeah. Are you?
It's the botanical company you went to Zonenbar.
Oh, right. Well, tell me, when you've gone, you put that out and you're playing around and whatever, are the Rifles a fairly polished band at that stage, or are you still polishing your boots at that stage?
We were polished as in there was tight and full on, but I don't think we quite had our lives down together. It was a bit erratic. So that was probably what people liked about it. It was as you learn to harness your power a bit, it focuses differently. But we were pretty good at it.
I mean, Ken, it's if I see bands now that either give me silent air between songs, I go, what the hell do you think you're doing? You're in the entertainment business. Or they're talking about rubbish that has no correlation to anything on the night. Now, so there's two forms of being professional and providing your audience with what they want. Well, they want the music because they're coming there to see you play music. If you're going to talk, they want you to talk to them relevant about your music and them, right? And not self-ego and talk about yourself. And but you can be about yourself if it's about the gigs and whatever. And, for example, you can roll straight into songs, song after song, and it's got to be tight because you are entertaining. And then if I never saw the Rifles way back in the day, but when I saw you guys later on, Damo telling the stories was that's fantastic. So there was relevant stories between each song and quite interesting. I mean, he's actually quite a funny guy, wasn't he, with those stories?
He was
and so you're getting this double entertainment factor. You're getting the songs that you wanted to come and see with the band, and you're getting Damo talking about stories about on the road and in the band and what's happened during the recording. And it all fits really well, but that takes a long time to hone that skill. It really does. I mean, there wasn't any, as I say, silent air in between your songs because he knew he had to talk, keep it going.
Yeah, the early days, I don't think we talked as much.
Well, no, that's right, because you're honing your skill, correct?
Yeah, correct. So there was always something.
Yeah. So now tell me, are you thinking, so you've got that album out, what's the album after that?
Then we did the Foreign Languages, I think, in second.
And are you thinking about overseas, or are you still thinking nationalistic in Australia?
It's hard to know. I think overseas may have been a dream, but it was like completely unrealistic. But there was some good reviews overseas in the second album, I think, which then started the thought, maybe you could think of them.
It's a hard business in that respect. If artists, if you really want to make it, you do need to go overseas. You have to go overseas, and you have to be very prolific about going overseas in the sense you've got to do it multiple times or you've got to live over there. And it gets very difficult with artists. I suppose this won't sound too good. As soon as the artists get either girlfriends or they get married, that dream is gone. And,
It can be.
It can be. Let's say 9.9 times out of 10. There's the 0.1, but 9.9 out of 10, the dream will that's it, it's out the window. The pressure's on the band and on the artists to go away. I was talking to Chris Stockley from the Dingoes, and he was telling me about, I didn't kind of realise, because I go back a bit too far, that he was in Axiom too. So he was one of the Axiom guys. I mean, and they were huge also, had hits overseas also. And he said they were overseas and Warner Brothers had put them up in London, and they were doing some recordings. This was really like 71, just before the Dingoes, and they'd been put up in London. They got a house. They're just recording. They don't want them to do any gigs. And he goes, this goes on for a year. I mean, can you imagine the money spent? And he said then what happens is there was a wife and there was some girlfriends come over. He said that's it. That's when it all finished. He said they came over, people couldn't concentrate on the music, and it disintegrated. And, and when at the Dingoes was a bit of a different story, but they had some similarities there, because they then ended up being in Canada. They'd done some big shows around and were being managed by Lynyrd Skynyrd's manager. As soon as that plane crashed, that was the end of that. But, getting overseas was their prime objective, because you had to get to that bigger audience, and it was really difficult to do it out of Australia. But you guys have definitely gone over and tested the land over in America and Europe by about 85. Would that be correct?
Something like that, yeah. I think, the label were trying to get us to go to England, but I just sort of knew England would never work for us, and it never really did. On a small scale, but we took it personally to America.
Yeah, I think you're American too, or you're German.
Yeah. Well, the Euros always really wanted to think on it.
Yeah.
But look, I don't know. I can't even to take credit for anything that it was like. We pioneered indie bands going to America.
Yeah.
People would probably owe us a nod if they knew for doing it, because, we basically thought, we go to England because the label wants us there and we try. United Airlines flies had some short deals to America, so we're feeling away. I rang up, my brother was living in the States, I think.
Oh, yeah.
And he knew a bloke who was a muser up in Boston. So I rang him, and he rang this guy, Bad, who was a small time manager, and went on to the Sonic Youth and right. He did pretty well out of the scene, I think. But so he rang him up, and Bob rang around and did 6 venues. 2 or 3 of them said, "Who? What are you talking about?" And a couple of them said, "Get that band here as quick as you can."
Yeah.
So there was some interest, so you could go over and do something big. So we went and played PGGs and Boston and Maxwell's in Hoboken on the way to Europe, and then went to Europe for a couple of months. And then on the way back, I did like a 6 or 8 week US tour.
I mean, I would have thought that I would have thought you'd work well in Europe, because the Stems, for example, with Don Mariani, they worked well in Europe, and your Italy's, your France, and all that, and obviously Brazil, because I love Australian surf punk rock.
Yes, we made it there every time. Every time we would, the promoter lost money on the tour before and then canned ours.
Yeah. And so I thought those two, but the UK, no way. I mean, I always felt that it was a lot easier in the mid-'80s, and I was working for Michael Gudinski at the time, and we had no success overseas whatsoever. I mean, everybody talks about he wanted the dream of the number one and all that. And in actual fact, he knew, we had discussions on this many times. It just had a bit of a chuckle about it. Trying to get a number one in America, or a hit. Now, for example, we wasted a lot of money on Jimmy Barnes over there, got nowhere.
Yep.
But indie acts like yourself actually had a much better possibility of getting penetration in the American market.
Absolutely.
There is no doubt about it, whereas your more commercial acts, radio-friendly, accessible commercial acts, I think had virtually no hope at all.
I mean, the ones who I think did best out of all that was probably the Heated Dreams.
Yeah.
because they were sort of indie enough, but they had some major backing and they had the money spent on them and they had some songs that appealed. When we were sort of touring around, the American circuit was going playing to colleges and do this and that. The college kids couldn't wait for us. They were too full on.
The college circuit radio was so influential in breaking the Gurus.
Yeah. I mean, they played that game beautifully and did really well. We did some college gigs. I think Bob worked out pretty quick. We had a club room.
Yeah.
I didn't really like the muscles of the people who went to the bar and the club.
Yeah.
We'd go with the college kids and they just didn't know. They had no idea what to do with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And
like 20% of the audience loved it, but the rest of them just ran.
I think where the Rifles would have been an absolute sensation was on the Australian university circuit. And when I was at uni, we used to have bands every Friday, free of charge, because we're very much a socialist country back then with Labor in power. And so the union, the student union was extremely powerful and we used to pay our dues. Of course, we didn't pay any uni fees and everything. We used to subsidise everything and we used to subsidise gigs every Friday. Now, this happened at every university in Melbourne and I know it happened interstate too. And so every Friday you had these massive gigs and it was just mind-blowing and you guys would have just, I mean, the late 70s, that's 77 maybe to 80 there. I think it all stopped after that because, then I think the Libs came in and they started making university payable.
That was before our time, so we couldn't.
You would have loved that time and you would have fitted in there perfect. It was just the perfect, they were the perfect venues to break acts. It really was. And you would get 500 people to those gigs every Friday. Yeah. We just used to chuckle. It was just so good. But therefore, you've gone overseas, you're testing the waters, you're getting back here. Are you getting disillusioned or are you as full on as you were in the beginning at that mid-80s?
Depends on members of the band. After the first tour, a couple of guys left, so we got
they'd had enough of you, had they?
Probably.
Right.
It's hard to know. I still remember the conversation with Damien that we had when those two guys came up and told us that they were going to leave the band. And we said, why? And I said, because they're not getting anywhere. And we just said to each other, we just toured Europe and America and a few years in Australia and we're not getting anywhere. So we just sort of chuckled and went, all right.
Tell me, when that was happening at that very time, how big was the audience that you were capturing at gigs here in Australia? Would you get 300 people or a gig?
Yeah. It would have been something like that. Sometimes more.
That is really good because if you think of you probably never played the Prospect Hill. The Prospect Hill Hotel here was one of ours, great venues, and that would only hold about 150. And if, that's what you'd pack out each week. Now, to get 300 is a big ask,
Yep.
And that's fantastic because remember, back in those days too, you had your own crew, all that kind of stuff. It's not like today. So you are powering on.
No, we were doing pretty well. So, I think there was a point where we reached saturation. When we did go overseas, we sort of reached what we could do here without either someone putting some budget into it or whatever. Or we just knew. I guess we just knew, and it's like the only future we really had is out of Australia for a while.
Yeah.
And
So let's go to the next album. There's got to be a lot of head banging at the time to go, right, well, we've done a couple of 2 or 3 albums, we've toured overseas, we've got an audience happening. What the hell do we do? How, you do have to think like that to go, well, what are we going to do? Because we know we're successful and we want to be further successful.
Yeah, we had a couple of tricky moments financially, and we started doing Total Asthma, and a deal was reached with Albert where the bands on Hot, because Ed Cooper was there and a couple others, could go in and record it like a third of the studio rate in the downstairs studio, and they'd distribute us and do all this kind of stuff. So we got halfway through Total Asthma, and someone in the accounts department decided that was a really bad idea and pulled the plug on it. So it was like, okay, you owe us $50 to this, and you have to then go and finish the record somewhere else because we're not going to let you finish it here.
You didn't agree to any of that, did you?
Oh, there was nothing we could do about it.
I mean, those rates back then, I can tell you when we were recording in the 84 to 91 period at Mushroom, we were paying, whether it be 301s or AAV down here or wherever, even Sing Sing later on, but you were paying $2,300 a day. I mean, who pays $2,300 a day for a studio? Are you kidding me? So an album is $150,000 before we blink.
Yeah. No, from memory, we were paying $40 an hour, $40 an hour at Albert's.
Yeah, that's cheap.
That is a really good deal. So when they pulled it, it was okay. So we had to make copies of the tape because they were using a different machine with Dolby and.
Oh yeah, here we go. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, okay. And at the time, go on.
We got smashed. So that was the fund that we were going to use to go overseas and stuff like that. Because basically the Rifles pretty much funded everything we had to do. We took a long time before anyone coughed up anything for us to do anything.
What are Hot doing at the time? Are they contributing, or what are they? What's their role?
They had their own struggle.
Yeah.
Because it's like they made their mistakes. There was a couple of deals. They were trying to pioneer a few things, and two things in a row. Because the same thing happened, I think, at EBS at the time. They signed a second distribution deal where we could get the mastering and they'd press it up.
Yeah.
And like you'd notice that, but in the major labels, one guy leaves the job, and you got come in and he wants to assert his authority, so he just gets rid of everything.
Oh, mate, it was look, that was the good thing at Dundas Lane than at Mushroom is that it was always Michael. And so we did see things through. There was, I remember about 88, 89, me and him were talking and I said, we've got 32 acts. We had 32 local acts. And, it's not like Laneway having 90 acts where, well, a lot of them are old bands who are not playing anymore, so it's quite easy. But when you've got 32 acts that are working, these are acts that are trying to become stars. And it just dwarfed anything else in the country. Nobody came close. And, there was about two or three where it went completely skew. If Kings of the Sun were one. Yep. And there was another band who had, I think it was Jackknife, but that was their song. But they were out of Sydney and they were just fantastic. And we never even got the first album out. It was a disaster. So there's one or two that it didn't work. But we wouldn't just jettison bands that quickly. And, like you said, someone comes in and just changes and just says,
So I think that was what slammed them all of a sudden from having a pressing distribution deal. They suddenly had to owe $90,000 or some crazy amount of money at the time.
Yeah.
So anything that would have funded any of our records went into that. And we just stump up and do what we could do because we wanted to keep doing stuff. And we had an arrangement. Some of it was good, some of it wasn't. And, it didn't end up with anything probably, but you tried the stuff at the time and kept trucking on. And the next step, we were in Europe and we made Run and Beat Party in Holland.
Oh.
So that was, which was great studio. It was the first an exceptional studio with an amount of time. But that was basically, the guys who owned that studio.
Yeah.
And the label, I can't remember what they were called, Dureco or something. They put our record out, they put the Trippids and stuff like that out. So they owed a lot of money for the Trippids.
Yeah.
So they conquered studio time.
Well, I mean, if you go in, I find that management's a big issue with artists. Did you actually have management at all?
We did at some point, like that, and then we had the label managing us for the only, which is a really dumb idea. What?
Oh, look, look, I mean, management's a big issue, and it's so difficult to find honest management. And
absolutely.
One that comes to mind all the time was the big agencies that were in Sydney, MMA and all those who would, manage and then record, and everything went on. And, the models at the end of their career, I remember doing the final show at the Palace in Melbourne to about 1,800 people, and the band weren't even talking to each other, I didn't think. But they did the show because they were in debt so far. I think they had $76,000 to pay off at the time, which the gigs did. They did that one tour. And and that was it. And I couldn't understand with a band. The second album was a disaster. This is when James Freud joined. It was a disaster, the second one, and I thought it was better than the first record. But it had all gotten heated internally as a band. But they'd lost so much money on touring and living the lifestyle. It became so obvious. I used to see it with so many acts, and I used to pay them so much money, and they still had no money. It was like living like kings, and just only the one or two smart ones, hunters, were extremely smart about the whole thing and had a good manager. And, they socked their money away. At one stage, the manager for the hunters came to see me one day and said, we really want to push in America. And on the college circuit, they were quite big, and they were thinking of buying a house in America. That's how much money they had available and that they were making. And, we went through the pros and cons and all that kind of stuff. But it's very hard to find a manager like that. Very difficult.
Yeah, we definitely didn't have one. People tried, people did stuff. We had a bit of bad luck and we had some stupid stuff happen and we did some stupid stuff. But yeah, it was the challenge. The Rifles was a band that with someone who had the right vision could have made us very, very big.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Focused on that style of music, directed to the right audience, doing the right shows, socking the money away for the band, right? And that requires a lot of honesty when you're socking away a lot of money. So let's say we're charging, back in those days, $10 a ticket, which was a lot of money. $10 a ticket, and you're getting 300 people or sometimes 500 people, and there's a lot of money involved here, and people get very slippery hands. And but I agree with you. The Rifles could have. Spy versus Spy, probably another one that got to a point where they should have been huge and didn't. And as we know now, they are big in Brazil, big. These guys get a lot of streams, and of course Michael's dead, but if they were still all alive, they could easily go over there and do a Rod Laver type show, which is 10,000 people. And so, but it didn't happen, it's a sad story. So you guys are trucking on because it just continues on. It's like a bloody rolling train. So then there's a host of albums. So you never ever thought about breaking up, did you?
No. There was, you had discussions. We'd always just keep knocking on. The music was what drove me, and there was a passion and an understanding. After 87, 88, we came back to Australia, and that was when we got on True Tone or EMI, because to his credit, I'll give Michael Floyd that. He saw something in it. Yeah. Thought he could do something about it.
Yeah.
We went about it the wrong way, but they really sort of thought.
Well, good label. Good label.
Yeah. Yeah. So, he did with a couple of people, but... Was that
Blind Ear? Blind Ear?
Yeah, Blind Ear.
I mean, that is an extremely professional record. I mean, it's polished. That's a polished international sound. The songs have been very, I think, carefully structured. I know you wouldn't like it, but they based towards a commercial bent. There's no doubt about it. That was a record that could have gone in the realms of REM or anything, that indie sound that just became then a common, a commercial sound. And it had it all.
Yeah, we were either ahead or behind the time. That was our thing. We rarely landed it because when he kind of shopped that record to America, he was about a year before Nirvana.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it was the timing was just completely wrong because 18 months later, 2 years later, they probably snapped it up. But they thought, who wants to hear rock and roll?
What year was that? 88, 89, 90?
89.
89? Yeah, I thought so because it was vinyl. I first saw it in a vinyl store. CDs weren't really taking off yet. They'd only just started. And I remember someone said, and I was at Mushroom, and someone said, you should listen to this. I go, who are they? I had no idea because I was focused on our acts. And and then I played it.
Even worse.
Well, that's true. And then I played it, and I went, wow, this is really polished. It's and that was a world class record. So so obviously it doesn't do the big business, but I thought it did quite good business, didn't it?
It did good business for us, but it didn't do good enough for EMI or any of that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So it was very, you'd know better than me. It was a very corrupt system, you know. Like, he tried to do some promotion, so it's like, you know, we made a couple of wonderful surfboards because we were known as a surf stand.
Yeah.
So there was a giveaway to get our film clip played on television or whatever it was. And they said, no, it's not enough. You got to give away a trip to Hawaii as well.
Oh, that's insane.
Yeah.
That's just insane.
That was all the shit that you could go on just to get one song played. You know, that was how the whole industry at that particular time.
And I think that I would have thought that, you know, at the time it was a double J or triple J song. Or, you know, that's where it should have fitted, should have been big there. They were pulling about 8% then. They're probably pulling 0.02% now. They're totally irrelevant. And and they could break a band, and you actually didn't need to be on the commercial FM stations. You could be actually broken from Triple J, and, mate, you'd be pulling 1,000 people to every show.
Well, we did that. We did a, you know, we got quite successful as a live act, and, you know, the thing sold. It just didn't sell like if it had sold 3 times as much, we'd have probably gone on to all kinds of stuff. But, you know, I don't really know.
So
it went well for us, but it wasn't it didn't sell enough to take us that step above the 500 to 600.
So where do we go to after that? So True Tone, are we still with True Tone, or we move on?
True Tone, I think his deal fell through with EMI, so then we ended up at Festival for a couple of records.
Oh, with Jim White, okay.
Festival, Festival were great because they were very artist-friendly.
Yeah, absolutely.
The artists, but, yeah, they kind of, Damien had a few terms. You know.
Did you record at their studios in Sydney?
We did. Not that record, not that anything. It was under refurbishing. What he's having on a stick was done in a different studio.
Yeah, okay. And so that's where it's tailing out there. So how are you feeling about life at that stage?
I don't remember. I was still, yes, we were trying to do some stuff. We were writing good songs.
Yeah.
But I was a bit, Heaven on the Stick wasn't my favourite recording. And we got Rob in to produce it. It wasn't that I was concerned that I wasn't doing it anymore.
Was that Rob Younger?
Rob came and did it. And there was stuff went on behind the scenes with the management and Rob and Damon and stuff. They wanted to try and aim towards the Triple M thing. And I'd been travelling and playing up news with the age, and I used to spend a lot of time out of Australia. And I thought, you're fucking mad, you know.
That was never going to happen. Triple M, it was never going to happen with you guys.
They were never going to play it, but they made a record to sound like that. Well, we needed to make a tougher Blonde because Soundgarden and Nirvana and the people who are popular around the world, and these guys are focused on Triple M in Australia, and I feel like you're not going to. It's a good record, but it's not the record we should have made at the time.
Yeah. So then, has Damo done his solo record by that stage?
Sometime around then.
Yeah. So he's gone off and done that. Which again didn't set the world on fire, I didn't think, but good enough. Good enough record.
Now his second one, the Dalai Lama, that was a big guy hit. That did quite well.
Well, the one you go and do, is it in Italy where you do that live album with another band?
I did a bunch of stuff.
What's the one we released?
Oh, the Gruya. That's Tubular Greens. That was Spain. That was a lot later.
Now that to me has got to be that is a fantastic recording, fantastic energy. Fantastic playing. It is just great. Who were the guys?
They were a bunch of funk guys. There's a couple of guys. One of the guys went into the Las Coronas, who became a very big surf band around the world.
Yeah.
So there was a few bits. So it's just basically Spanish indie hierarchy.
Yeah.
I made one show who I'd known from booking Jade tours and stuff like that, and just went from there. And he just rang me out one day. I got this idea you could do an Australian indie tour around Songmill. Right? So I went over there and did that.
And it was successful, yeah?
Yeah. We played about 100 gigs.
Yeah.
Yes, it didn't set the world on fire, but it was good fun.
So you're doing this, and you got Yargi, of course, which you're doing in between all of this. And
there was Crunch in the middle of all of that too.
That's right. Yeah. So there's a lot of that, and there's a lot of records there that Ken Steedman's played on. So therefore you get up to today, and we know the passing of Damo, so that's kind of the end of the Rifles in a sense, and from live performances, I mean.
Yep.
And therefore, what are your projects at the moment?
Currently, the Radio KFC.
Yep, with Ben and with Russell, and
Yep.
that's in, I suppose, the flavour of indie. Is it indie punk or indie rock? What would you think?
Don't know.
Don't know.
Rock, probably. I've never been able to label myself
Yeah.
as anything. 'Cause, you know,
And then you
probably
got Deep South that you're working,
that's there's Anna, who's from Spain, the
Yep.
great singer. So
and then you've got all the Kent material coming out, and that's.
Yep.
I was only just listening to one just this morning, and what was I listening? I was listening to The Thing Is. Now that's a rocking song, and I mean it gets back to the Rifles, and and as I know you so well, is you're doing all the recording yourself. You've got a home studio, and you've taught yourself how to do the lot, and that means you can be prolific. The days of the studio, which kind of unaffordable, are becoming fewer and fewer. And what do you think that liberation has given you, Kent, to be able to play and record your own music?
Musically, it's great. For other reasons, it's tricky, but yeah, it's assisted my sanity absolutely, and just keeping me in because there's no gigs to be done. So
No.
I'm jamming a bit. We'll get going with Jim Medini and the Family Dog again at some point. But he's been a bit busy for a couple of years.
So he's been busy for a couple of years, or he's going to be busy?
Yeah, no, he was busy doing work on stuff.
Yeah, okay.
That's fun. So yeah, I spoke to him the other day. We're trying to finish another album we've got.
Yeah.
That may do some gigs later in the year. We'll see. But yeah, it's been a liberation just in that it's given me some musical outlet, and it's fun to do. I'm quite happy doing it. I have no expectation. It falls on deaf ears in most cases, but it just keeps me going.
Interestingly, if I have a look at your catalogue, let's just use Spotify, and all the songs are getting in the thousands. But I talk to a lot of young acts now who might have one or two songs in the thousands, and they have everything under 1,000, and they wonder what they're doing wrong. And it's incredible how there's this form of entitlement in that you've got to put in the real hard yards. You've got to treat this like a job. This is a job. So I know you're not big on it, but at your age, it's very difficult to be big on it, is social media, okay? But when you're 20 years old or you're 25, all the opportunities are there, and part of that job is you have to do your social media. You've got to do your recording regularly. I talk to a lot of artists about you've got to have a release every, say, 6 weeks, which you do deliver on many fronts. And a lot of bands do it for 2 or 3 songs and then they can't deliver. And then they go, we're not getting the listens now. I go, but you had some momentum. You've just lost it all because there's another 1,000 bands in between you. And whereas if you strip it back to 1985, it was a real profession. It was a job. We had people we had to feed. We had a truck. We had equipment. We did our tours, and it was a real job. And okay, it's transitioned to a digital world, but the principles of it being a job have not changed. And they find it really difficult, and it gets that laziness that is, well, maybe a major might sign us. And then you're getting into the realms of that commercial craziness of I did see a picture of, I won't even name the artist this morning, a female artist who'd painted her face up and was doing the whole, and that where they're going for that real shock effect.
Yep.
And, so I had to listen to the music, and I thought, well, I just can't get it. But there's this whole commercial bent, and it changes everything, but that's a 1 in a million. So you've got to get back to, it's a job. You need to write. You need to hone a craft of writing. And
well, it's an art. I see it as an art. It's not a job to me anymore because music's always been an art form. That's probably why I never really made any money at it, because it was always about creating what was the best music at the time that we was in our realms to do, rather than focus on anything other than that.
Yeah. But you say that because you go, well, it's an art, but in actual fact, what you were doing was you were working a job. You were.
Yeah, working hard.
And I find that it's very difficult with a lot of the younger bands today. And then they go, can you get us, the first thing they'll say to me, can you get us a gig? Or what can you do for us? I now say, what can you do for Laneway? Because
well, that is the difference, I guess, that entitlement thing, because we knew we had to do everything themselves.
Yeah, what can you do for Laneway? Because first I need to see that you're actually treating it the right way, and then, yes, we can actually deliver back. But it can't be all Laneway's way, because we can't do it. If we're doing everything and you're not doing any social media, it doesn't work,
Yep.
And can you get us a gig? Well, we're not booking agency. We're not a booking agency. And every time I do gigs, I get totally stressed out because everybody wants to be on the gig. So, there's everything that goes with it. And they've really got to learn to settle down, have a plan. And I go through the plan with them, but very few can follow through with it. It is incredible, the limited amount that can actually follow through.
Yeah.
And then some of them will go, we'll do that ourselves. We could do all that. And then years later, you have a look and they're no longer existing, and, it just doesn't go any further. But I think you would have seen it all. And I think as an artist now, your craft is so well developed. You deliver a lot of product, and I think it shows through with your audience. And, you're putting your videos together too. And I think it's a testament to what you've delivered to the Australian music scene, and what Celibate Rifles have delivered to the Australian music scene. It's been I think you could say, been a wild ride.
Massive and absolute fun a lot of the time, but a lot of personal and interpersonal challenges and just stuff. It's just, as you said before, not with relationships or anything like that. But it's what your passion is.
I've never considered what I've done a job, because I've had such a good time my whole life in entertainment, and I would consider you'd been in the same boat, that it's just been an absolute joy. Could you imagine going to an office each day and being a data entry input kind of person? So you sit there on a computer and input data. Well, I might as well slash my wrist, because I couldn't do it.
Yeah, and a lot of people can. I can't. I can barely put input data into putting my own songs up.
So, well, look, it's been a pleasure talking to you, Kent, and it's been a fantastic journey to see. There was a lot in there. We've gone over an hour. We could go further, but it'll be good to talk to you probably at the end of the year and see what's happened with all the releases in 2023, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, man.
Okay, thanks, Kent. Bye.
And everyone. Bye.
Bye.
And there it is, another Laneway Talks.